So if you're not measuring milestone achievement, then you're not controlling your install process. You only see problems at the end of the job. And so here I want to show you exactly where projects start slipping before they turn into late completions, right? Customer dissatisfaction, redispatching people. And so, yeah, so we have a data set here. And so what we have, pretty basic data set, something you may have seen before. If you want this file, then there is a link to download it, or you can shoot me an email. And so, yeah, so each job is going to have its own milestones, right? I mean, 1 through 6 here, kickoff, survey, everything was ordered, install, the start of the install, the end of this, like completed install, and then, sending the invoice. And then for commercial, light commercial, it would have more, it would have 9. And so, yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this milestone, the name, and then we have a planned and an actual. So planned and then an actual, like when it completed, and then was it late? And so all we have to do is calculate these 3 columns here. And so on time is if the actual is equal or less than the planned milestone, it's on time. And if not, then it's not on time. And so if column N is greater than column M, then it's a 0. Otherwise, it's a 1. 1 means on time. So I'll just recalculate it over here. Equals if this is greater than this, comma 0, because it's not on time, or 1. And then you can see these numbers are the same as these numbers. And then I just did days late. We're not using that in this KPI, but essentially it's just this minus this. And then finally, because the thing is like if we're counting, 1s and 2s, like in other words, how many 1s were late, we can't really do that because the problem is that you have, let me try to find, you have a commercial project. Where are you? Right here, right? So in other words, these 2 here, say this number 1 light commercial is going to be different than this number 1, even though they're the same, but we need to segment them. And so the way we do that is we just combine. We're going to combine residential dash this, and then commercial dash that, and that's what you see here. Because the thing is, we need a unique list, and if we get a unique list of these, then we're not going to account for the commercial versus the residential. And so all we have to do is just equals. We could do equals residential and quotations space dash space quotations and then you can do the whatever the milestone is, and that's what we're doing here. And I'll show you why. But I'm going to delete that column. But so the first thing we're going to want is we're going to want a unique list of that column we just created. You can see this is not in order, and the reason is for the chart, right? We're sorting here the percent that was late. And so we need a unique list of this, and then we can start to do the counts, how many were late, and then the percentage late, and then create that chart. And so let's just go right here, and we can say type or whatever we called it, and then equals unique, and then here, and you can just click the column right here, and make sure milestones table. Make sure you're highlighting the table. And so yeah, so now we have the list. And so I'm just going to copy this and then press Control-Shift-V to remove the formula. Okay, so we can call this, just count late percent, right? Count late and then, percent or percent late, however you want to call it. And so to count this is pretty straightforward. We just want to count if, and then whatever's in cell B3 here. So data here, comma, B3. So you have that. And what you'll notice right off the top is that these are all the same because there's 709 residential jobs and there's 211 light commercial jobs, right? And so now we want to count residential kickoff dispatch and 0 in the column we created, because 0 means it was late, right? The date was greater than the initial, estimated date. So I'll go back here, COUNTIF-S. I mean, you need COUNTIF-S here because it's more than one criteria. So you can choose type or days late, that's fine, or type or on time. So we want on time, but we want 0, right? Because it's not on time. And then the type here, comma, B3. And so 102 were late. You can just double click. And then now we just want to divide this by this, and then we get the percentage. Control-Shift-5 to make it a percent. And then now to create the chart, super easy. All you have to do is just highlight this, just click and drag, highlight, hold down the control key, and highlight this, and now go to insert, and then recommended charts. And you can choose, whatever chart you want, but what of these top two is going to be the best? And then okay. And then what do we call this over here? Percent late by milestone. That's fine. Percent late by milestone. Okay, and then from here, what we can do, you can see there's like a little bit of housekeeping, like just formatting. And then the first thing is I want to sort this largest to smallest. So data, make sure you're in here, and then you can just see, yeah, it's largest to smallest. And then from here, I want to drag this out a little bit. You can make it a little bit bigger. And then one last thing is maybe here at the bottom, I don't want there to be a decimal. Like I just want it to be 0%, 5%, 10%. So if you double click on the axis and then go to axis options, the 3 columns, and then number, and then here you can change it to 0. Well, that didn't work. Let's try that again. It's really strange because that's exactly how you do it. Let me just number 0. Okay. Okay, so now you have that here, which is what you're wanting. And then, I mean, if you want to make the text a little bit smaller, just so maybe it fits a little bit easier, then that's fine too. So yeah, so that's how you set that up. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to have the same thing here, but this time, actually, let me do the unique again because this isn't in. I want it to be in the proper order. So here, copy paste, and then with this one, I want the unique table, and then here I want the PM because then we can see who is, the percentage because we're going to have to recalculate this here, and then we want to see who's fallen off. And then, so now I want to sort this alphabetically, and then I want to paste it. I want it to be transposed here. I don't want it to be in this column. And so now I can transpose. Okay, copy that, and then Control-Shift-V to paste that. Okay, so now we need one single number here. So we need to get this number divided by this number. So in other words, for Brandon Shaw, how many were late for, the first milestone of residential versus the total first milestone of residential, right? And then we're going to create this heat map to look like this. And so let's think that through. So we can count FS, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to count in the table, and you can choose. You can start with the PM, you can start with the milestone, or you can start with the 0 for was it reached. And so I'll just start with the PM. I mean, it doesn't matter here. So it's C21, and then the next argument is table, and then here you can do the type on the right side. Oh, and then here you can do, so here you can do the type, comma, and then B22, and I'll just press enter for now. And you can see there's 286, but that's total, right? So that's actually going to be the denominator. So what we're going to do, let me remove this. I don't like that extra here. And then from here, comma, table, right? So you want the table, and then from here, you want was the milestone reached, right here, was it on time? And then here we want a 0. And so 41. So now the thing we do is we just take this, and then we just divide it by itself again, but we remove this part here, if you remember, just to get the percentage. Control-Shift-5 to make it a decimal. And then now we just want to drag it to the right and drag it down. So we can't do any of those because what's happening is you can see this is on Brandon Shaw, but this is coming down with the formula. We drag it down and everything comes down with it. So we have to lock the cells. And so anywhere that you see the red, even though it might be a different color, but anywhere you want to lock the column, meaning as we drag it down, we do want it to change, but as we drag it over, we do not want it to change. We want to put a $sign before the column, so before the letter for the red, but again, it might not be red in yours. And then for C21, the row, we want to put the $sign before the row and after the column. So rows are numbers, right? So before the number, but after the column. Like you would never say column 2, you would say column B, right? You would never say row A, you would say row 1. All right, that should be good. Now make sure you copy and paste. Don't drag it because the tables still have that same sort of referencing problem. And then now what we might want is we might want to have a milestone of, I don't know, anything over 30%. And so I'm going to highlight this and then go to Home, Conditional Formatting, highlight cells greater than 30%. Right? And so you can see here, like the biggest, delay is submitting permits, which makes perfect sense, right? Or getting them approved. And you can toggle this and you can see, what's going on here. And you can see most of the delays are in commercial. And so finally, say you're sharing this with your team and you want the target, you want to say the word target just so they know like, hey, this is a changing cell. But if you type in the word target, it's not going to work because now it's being stored as text. So just type in the percentage again, press Control-1 to get the format cell dialog box, and then go to custom, and then quotations, target, you can do benchmark, threshold, whatever word you want to use, space quotations. And then now you have it set up to where it's a changing cell. But this sort of makes sense, right? I mean, everything is breaking down, for commercial takes longer. And so, yeah. So again, if you want this data set, there's a link to download it. If you can't find that link for whatever reason, shoot me an email, questions@databoards.io. And also, if you need some help restructuring a data set, creating these data sets, then again, shoot me an email or there's a link to top of my calendar. You can do that as well. But anyways, that is all I have for this video, and I will see you in future lessons.